Sometimes a punishment isn't just about ending a life. Sometimes it's about making a statement. It's a terrifying piece of theater, really, designed to be seen, to be remembered, and to make sure nobody ever forgets who's in charge. Today, we're diving into one of the most chilling examples of that philosophy in action.
So just imagine the challenge for a second. You're the head of the Ministry of Punishments, and your emperor, the Son of Heaven, has a very specific problem. He's bored. The question lands on your desk. How do you invent a form of suffering that's not only brand new, but spectacular enough for a living god?
So get this. This was the official verdict from Emperor Hamfong. His court presented him with all the known ways to execute someone for a crime in the palace: beheading, strangulation, even death by 1,000 cuts. And he found all of them to be, and this is a direct quote, commonplace, old-fashioned, and boring. He didn't just want a death, he wanted a show.
And make no mistake, this wasn't some casual suggestion. This was a royal command. Suddenly, the entire Ministry of Punishments was under incredible pressure to innovate in the field of cruelty. The career of its minister, and probably his life, let's be honest, depended on creating an entirely new spectacle of pain. So, backed into a corner, what did they come up with? They didn't just find a solution. They engineered one from the ground up. They called it the Daizim Vorung, or, as we'll call it, the Yamaloka belt.
And that name, it tells you everything you need to know. Yamaloka is the realm of Yama, the king of hell in Buddhist mythology. So this was, quite literally, the belt of the king of hell. It was designed with a single horrifying goal in mind, not a quick end, but a drawn-out, agonizing, and visually spectacular performance.
So, how did this thing actually work? Well, let's break it down. It was forged from steel and polished until it gleamed. Gotta look good for a royal spectacle. It was engineered to fit perfectly around the victim's head, and it had this mechanism of ropes that allowed two executioners to apply slow, controlled, and perfectly even pressure. But here's the thing. Its main target wasn't the neck or the heart. It was something so much more psychologically terrifying: the victim's eyes.
And right there, that reveals the whole mindset at play, doesn't it? For the Ministry of Punishments, this wasn't just butchery. To them, it was a dark craft, almost like a performance art that required immense skill, a lot of practice, and a very particular kind of dedication.
If you don't believe me, just listen to this quote from a high official who was overseeing the project. He said, "A quick death proves nothing. The process must be slow, so you are drenched in sweat. That is how we prove the skill of our ministry." So the goal wasn't just the prisoner's death, it was the flawless performance of the executioners, the visible suffering of the victim. That was how they knew they'd done a good job.
The procedure itself was like a horrifying 4-act play. First, the placement. The polished steel belt is fitted snugly onto the victim's head. Then the tightening begins. You've got 2 executioners, one on each side, applying slow, even tension. And the whole time, the key isn't speed, it's pressure. Slow, gradual, building and building until that immense cranial pressure has nowhere left to go, and it forces the victim's eyeballs from their sockets.
But here's the thing. You don't just pull off something that perfectly horrifying on your first try. Before the main event, before performing for the emperor, the Ministry of Punishments had to do something that's almost unthinkable. They had to rehearse.
And this is where the grand theory crashed headfirst into a really grim reality. The goal was this flawless performance of professional skill for the emperor. But what actually happened? Well, they experimented on other condemned prisoners. Their first test subject? He died way too quickly. That's a failure in their book. Then the belt didn't even fit the second prisoner's head properly. It was just this gruesome process of trial and error, all to perfect the art of torture.
It's hard to wrap your head around, right? But to understand it, you have to see it from their perspective. For the executioners, this wasn't just a job. It was a sacred profession, passed down through generations. They had rituals. They prayed to their founding ancestor, this mythical lawgiver named Gao Yao. They believed that during the execution, they were just men. They were instruments of the state itself. Okay, so after all the gruesome rehearsals and the solemn rituals, the big day finally arrives. Showtime. And this was about so much more than one prisoner's death. This was about demonstrating absolute power and instilling absolute terror in everyone who watched.
And believe me, this whole day was a performance, choreographed down to the minute. It starts at dawn with final checks and prayers. In the morning, the executioners are formally brought into the palace. Then, at midday, the gleaming belt is presented to the emperor himself for his personal inspection. Then comes the execution, carried out in front of the entire court, and it all leads up to a final, chilling address from the emperor to his captive audience.
So after all that buildup, the climax of this horrifying show, it wasn't a scream, it wasn't a cry for mercy. The historical accounts describe the final moment with this cold, clinical precision. Just two sharp, distinct sounds. Pop, pop. And once it was over, with the deed done, the emperor turns to his audience, his ministers, his generals, his courtiers, and he delivers the whole point of the exercise. "You have all seen it," he announces. "It is a mirror for all of you."
And boom, there it is. That's the real reason for all of this. It was never just about punishing one person for a crime. The spectacle, the so-called artistry, the slow, agonizing process, it was all designed for the audience. The Yamaloka belt wasn't just an instrument of death, it was a tool of psychological warfare, designed to solidify the emperor's power through absolute fear.
So this whole horrifying event really leaves us with a final question, doesn't it? When cruelty is turned into a performance, a public show, who is the real audience? The person being punished or every single person forced to watch?